Okay, so welcome to the Record Collectors Club Conversations podcast. This week's episode is one I've been looking forward to for a while, and my guest works in the music business whilst also being a keen record collector himself. So it's an honour to welcome onto the podcast Neil Bunn, who tours as part of the merchandise and touring team for lots of artists who we'll get into soon. But one of my favourite artists and ever bands, Idols. He tours the world of these artists, and I'm sure he'll have some great tales to tell. So welcome onto the podcast, Neil.
Hello. Lovely to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
No, thank you very much for coming on. Okay, so let's dig into records first. I know you have a collection yourself. Obviously, we follow each other on Instagram. So how long have you been kind of collecting records, and what kind of genres do you collect?
I think I probably I fall into a similar kind of cliche in that I started collecting in the early 90s. That was when I think my ears kind of opened up to all kinds of music, and I got sort of into it then. And then CDs came in, and I did that classic thing where it was like, oh my God, these sound amazing. You know, this is incredible. Of course they sounded amazing because I was listening to records on essentially like an Alba stereo with a knitting needle for a stylus. So of course CDs came in, and I was just like, right. And I pretty much over the years just sort of binned off my early 90s collection, which I'm obviously massively regretting now. So I would say I probably got back into it about 6 years ago, I suppose. Yeah, properly sort of started kind of buying new stuff, and then doing that the cliche thing, which is rebuying all those records from the 90s that are now vast sums of money, but it is what it is. So I would say sort of on a serious, probably about 6 years or so. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you do buy new stuff, and are you going back and buying secondhand vinyl, or are you buying represses of these records that you just mentioned from the 90s?
A little bit of both, really. I find that I'm not too much of a purist, so I don't mind getting reissues, so long as they sound good and so long as it's a really good pressing, and they've been done really well. Then I'm more than happy to pick that up. I do find that I don't know if you're in agreement, but I do find that the used market is a little sort of bloated at the moment in terms of prices. I think people are sort of, they seem to think they can get a lot more for, certainly in the UK and a bit of Europe. I found it's a different ball game over in the States, but certainly over here I found that used prices can be quite ridiculous. So I tend to not actually, and I'd much rather spend my money on a good new release or a good repress, because it's being taken seriously again, which is great. So
yeah, okay, that's cool. I mean, that's worrying to hear, because I'm going to the States next week, so I'm gonna end up spending a ton of money, aren't I?
Mate, honestly, take just good luck. You're going to need a second suitcase. I had to do it. My first tour of the US. It was just absolutely unreal. I just hadn't. It's it's a bigger country, so of course the amount that was pressed is larger. But it's just unreal. So be prepared.
I am kind of prepared. I have got a big suitcase. I have got an idea of where I'm going in terms of shops and things like that. So, but yeah,
you'll love it. It's great. It's great.
Yeah. So recently you'd mentioned to me that you once got granted access to Peel Acres and John Peel's record collection. How did that come about? And I mean, that's a collector's dream to see. That's the most famous of record collections, apart from probably Questlove's record collection that's such famous as well. How did that happen, and what was it like?
So I am pals with Tom Ravenscroft, Six Music DJ. So I went to university with him. We were on the same course, and befriended him then, and stayed friends with him till now. And one summer back in probably '99, I think, he just said, "Do you want to come to the house and hang out for a long weekend?" And I obviously went, yes, of course. Not only, obviously, not only to hang out with Tom, but also I was like, wow, I mean, these opportunities don't come around that often at all. So I did, yeah. And I mean, I can't really put into words, realistically, really what it's like. It's one of those situations where the moment I saw the collection, I forgot every single band that I'd ever listened to in my life, because you're suddenly faced with 30 years of impeccable record collecting and also being gifted and sent stuff. So, if I was to I was sort of thinking, well, what do I look for? Do I look for, do I try and outfox John Peel's record collection by looking for something obscure? That's the most ridiculous thing in the world. So I was like, well, obviously he's got loads of Nirvana and Sonic Youth and stuff, which was kind of the stuff that, when I was kind of early 90s releases and stuff that I was into. I was like, well, do I look for, that incredibly rare Sex Pistols 7-inch that was, that was pulled? Well, he's probably got 4 copies of it, So it was I just kind of went through the main collection in the house. And just kind of pulling out bits and pieces, but also at the same time being aware that I'm kind of there to hang out. I'm not there to hang out and I mean, I wish I could have done, but yeah, flicking through those, and then we went into, obviously saw the 7-inches, which again, just unreal collection. And then I think we ended up just playing a whole load of drum and bass in this vast double garage that contains all the 12 inches. If you've listened to it's amazing, the Peel Acres podcast.
Yeah.
So you'll know that how the collection is kind of curated in 3 rooms. I think we just ended up going in there and smoking loads of fags and listening to drum and bass, which was brilliant. And just pulling records out. It was great. But I mean, what a privilege really to be able to have seen it. And I love the fact that it still exists as an entire collection, rather than sort of being, sort of to taken out of there or anything. I love the fact that it's there as this sort of, like a kind of little library that people can sort of go and to an extent, people within the industry and fans and friends can go and sift through. I think it's a really good thing.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously it's like comparing for us record collectors. That's like saying to a historian or an archaeologist, we've got the tomb of Tutankhamun in this room, and how important it is. It's such an important record collection to music, isn't it? John Peel was such an important person.
Oh, completely. And and also it's it's not just, obviously, I mean, the records are incredibly important, but it's everything that came with it. The little one sheets that bands would send out, get in touch if you want to hear more, the little handwritten notes, everything. And it's kind of all there. And of course, all the other memorabilia that he had as well. I mean, he was a huge collector of everything else. So it's a wonderful it's a wonderful thing, and what a joy to be able to go and flick through it. Yeah, it was amazing.
I don't know if you're like this when you go into a record shop, but if I go into a record shop that's so big and so vast and so much stuff, I get overwhelmed about what I'm looking for. So I would exactly be the same there. Like you said, like, oh, what do I look for? And I would lose my mind.
Oh, totally. It's like choice paralysis. It's kind of like when you're faced with such an incredible, I mean, I stayed in this, got sort of similar. I stayed in in an amazing Airbnb in New York once, and the guy that I rented it through was an antiquarian book dealer, and had done went way back into the 80s and stuff. He specialized in this really good books, and we essentially sort of stayed in this library of books. And I'm not a huge reader, but it was so vast, I kind of didn't even know where to start. So I sort of said, well, pull out some interesting things and tell me about them. And I think that's probably the way that, and you've got a huge collection as well. I think if I'd spend a good few minutes, I'd probably spend about 2 hours looking through it, but I'd also be like, well, pull out some really interesting pieces, and what am I going to sort of miss or anything? So but absolutely. I mean, you just don't really know where to start with something like that. And I'd be the same with pretty much all of the. I mean, Quest loves Giles Peterson's record collection.
Yeah, of course, Giles is,
right, absolutely. All these great ones, and I mean, and I would probably just go listen time out, pull out some great stuff, just play me some great records, and let's see where it goes from there. Really, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and as I was just talking about organizing it, he had these little cards, didn't he, as well, that has how it's all organized, and even that's just mind blowing to me. I struggle to organize mine behind, and that's nowhere near on the scale of that.
No, not at all. Yeah, filing cabinet with all the little index cards, all hands typed out, and again, just going through that, and that's it's not just a small filing cabinet. I mean, it's a collection of four drawers high filing cabinets with you just kind of go through. I mean, it's hundreds of thousands of records. It's really overwhelming. But he had a great, it was a great system, and and I think it's really good. I think also it's lent itself really well for the podcast that Tom's doing, because you can, with the main collection, you can go okay, let's see what let's go to the 80s section. That's really easy to find, and you can sort of do that. And similarly, and so I quite like the sort of that side of things.
Cool. All right, so then we're moving on to your day job. Then, sorry to say your day job, your day and night kind of job, I suppose it is. Touring, you kind of tour with you tour with bands, and obviously I mentioned Idols, which we'll come on to very soon. But you told me you toured with like Radiohead, Nick Cave. How did you land a job like that? That's amazing.
So I kind of totally fell into it, really. I think most people do in the industry, as a whole. I don't think very few people sort of wake up and go, I'm going to do that. I'm going to try and do that. It might have changed. I think the landscape's changed a little bit now, but so about 20 years ago, I was managing a clothes shop in Sheffield, and some really good friends of mine in a band called 65 Days of Static, kind of like a post-rocky sort of dancey stuff. Anyway, and they not only could, I don't think any of them could drive, but also neither of them were old enough to hire a van. So even if they could hire a van, they couldn't take it anywhere. So I was old enough and could drive, so I started driving them out to gigs, and we just sort of go around the country and stuff. And of course I couldn't drink, so I would end up being at the back of the room with a couple of boxes of t-shirts and some CDs, and and I would just sort of kind of do that because why not? I needed somebody to do it. As they grew as a band and there was less driving for me to do, I just kind of kept on doing merch really for them and going out, and we did some quite a few sort of UK and Europe tours, out for quite a while. And then it got to a point where I just decided that I quite wanted to carry on doing that. Really, I quite enjoyed it. I liked seeing the world. I liked traveling, so I quit the day job and went, let's just see if I can kind of make this happen. I sort of set myself a couple of years to sort of see how it would work. And and I was lucky, and I got in touch with a bunch of there's perhaps a few more now, but at the time there was maybe about sort of 4 or 5 big merchandise companies that will, the bands will sign on with, and they will be responsible for all their merchandise. Got in touch with a bunch of those, and one of them, got back in touch and said, okay, you've got some experience. At the time, I was also looking after the merch at the O2 Academy in Sheffield.
Okay.
And there's the concession booth there. So they went, okay. So they went, all right, let's give this a go, and put me out. My first tour was with a band called Battles. If you've heard, So that's my first ever tour was with them. I ended up doing like 2 tours with them. And after that, the merch company went, okay, you did all right. You didn't screw up. So the next tour was Portishead, which was like a massive, I was going from smaller venues, and then the next thing I'm kind of like, it's sort of 4, 5, 6,000 cap venues, and a much different sort of ball game. But I've just been really lucky since then. Really, I've just sort of carried on, and a lot of it is it's build good relationships with people, good relationships with the merch companies and tour managers and crew and stuff like that. And it's an odd job to be, to make a living from. But I sort of seem to be doing all right at it, but is it like all, I think all self-employed jobs, it's either a feast or a famine. I've had months where I've had no, there's been no touring. There's quiet times of the year as well. So but but it's been, and again, just through almost sort of I haven't sort of probably with the exception of a few bands, I haven't sort of I've been really lucky in the bands that I've been out on the road with, and the majority of them I've been huge fans of, and it's been a real honor to be out with them and working for them, really.
I mean, obviously, I suppose you were just talking about how the schedule works and how being self-employed, you could have months in between. Generally as a avid gig goer myself, you'd seem to see February to sort of April time, May time is a very busy time for gigs. And then you've got the festival scene that kind of pops up. And that's kind of the time when all the festivals are happening over the summer. And then you get back into it again, September, October time, busy again. Is that the kind of way that you kind of found the pattern was working?
Yeah, absolutely. You sort of have to kind of prepare yourself for it. There's been a lot of years when I haven't had a sniff of a tour until late February, sometimes early March. Having a previous tour perhaps finish early mid-December or something, and then so you can have a couple of months off because January is notoriously quite a quiet time. No one's got money, it is changing a little bit now, but certainly been times when that's been the case. So you do have to be you do kind of have to prepare for it, really. Excuse me, but I would say that. Yeah, I would say around about sort of February, March time, the industry starts waking up, and then and then obviously festivals as well, which I have done before. But also nowadays, you can full tours can be booked around festivals because if you're doing several festivals in throughout Europe and perhaps the UK, then you can obviously you can piggyback headline shows around that, and a lot of the time it makes financial sense to do that as well, because if you're hiring trucks and backline and PA and so on and so forth and tour buses, I mean, the last thing you want is for them to sort of be out there sitting doing nothing, whilst you're in between gigs. So if you can. So I think a lot of bands and a lot of tours will do that. So you can find touring work during the summertime as well.
It must be interesting as well, because you must have seen how tours have evolved so much over the years, from sort of being, don't get me wrong, I don't really know much about how bands set themselves up, but I was just thinking, I just popped into my head then, like I watched a recent documentary on Coldplay's like tour setup and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they're doing all the eco thing, aren't they, now and these days and stuff, but how big that must be to set up, and like the scale of it now is it's insane for a band that size anyway.
Oh, it's absolutely huge. Yeah. And I think that with certain bands and certain artists, there's an expectation as you grow that the show should grow with it and become bigger. And I think that for some bands, it's it can be very difficult to make that transition from like an academy sort of show where it's it's just them on stage to perhaps the larger sort of smaller arenas and what's sort of expected of that. I know when Nick Cave made his made the sort of the jump from theaters to arenas, a lot of people were like, "Is this going to work? How's this going to work?" And because it's a guy on stage, and I think you have to. So there's some people that can kind of wear that crown and go and run with it, and there's others that it will sort of eat them up. The way he did it, and whether or not this was planned, I don't know. But, he took control of the entire arena. I went to the Nottingham Arena, which is a massive place, and he just went right out into the crowd, and and he kind of almost created this much more intimate sort of feel to the entire show. And it wasn't, even if you were sort of sat kind of up in the nosebleeds or something, or like right at the back, whatever, he kind of came out and almost sort of delivered his sermon essentially, which is what I think he kind of does. His huge, his and I think that's sort of how you kind of have to do it. But yeah, absolutely. I think there's and also the landscape has changed with sort of pop acts as well. There's I think when people go to those shows, it really is a lot of the case is about sort of putting as much in as you possibly can. So that's why you'll find LED screens and lasers and pyro and everything like this, because it's, and also it's, I think it's justified because the cost of tickets are, you sort of want to kind of get your money's worth, really. So it's a balancing act, but yeah,
it is. That's quite a nice segue to talk, because I was going to ask you about sort of pricing. Then obviously you see pricing on merch all the time, and pricing on records. What's your kind of thoughts? I'll start with records now. What's your kind of thoughts on pricing of a new record these days? Say an album that just comes out on a Friday. What's your thoughts on it?
I mean, they are prohibitively expensive.
Yeah.
They've gone from being, I think, sort of like a little treat to like really quite a luxury now. You'll be dropping, it can be 35, 40, 45 pounds or something, quite easily on a release. And I think it's gone from being this, when vinyl sort of the first kind of, my timeline is going to be completely wrong, but say looking back sort of maybe sort of 4 or 5 years ago when it sort of started, people said it was a great time for it. And now I think that I think there's there's been a lot of change. I don't know much about sort of the manufacturing side of things. I would assume that that's gone up, and as a result, it's sort of now it is just more prohibitively expensive to press vinyl. But also bands and companies are looking for where they can make money. I mean, and streaming has taken away so much of that. So I think that is the case. I personally don't really begrudge dropping, a chunk of money on a new artist's, or perhaps a slightly, I don't know, like a lesser known artist's release. I think that's fine. I feel like I am kind of contributing towards their future as a band and as a musician. I've got no problem with that. What I do begrudge is like a lot of back catalogue releases. So I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine about this. I mean, a good pressing of a Beatles album should be 10, 12 pounds, I mean, they've made enough money, there's no more money to be made. Same with like Bowie and Dylan and all these. I would understand maybe, slightly more obscure things, where you are digging into the vaults, but all of the Beatles back catalogue should be 10, 12 pounds on vinyl. If you want to listen to it on vinyl, they shouldn't be sky high prices and prohibitively expensive, because I don't think that's fair. So I think certain things. It's like, I mean, if you remember, I don't know if you remember. Well, actually, I say remember, they're still around. But FOP Records, I remember being at university, and I'd go into FOP with, like 30 quid or something, and I'd pick up. And CDs were a fiver, and I'd get like a few that I knew about. I would get an artist's back catalogue, one that was missing from my collection. Well, okay, I'll give that a go. And I'd take a punt on something as well, because it was like a fiver for a CD. It's like, okay, well, if it's rubbish, I'll just, send it off to the charity shop or something. It would be really nice if, if that was able to, if you were able to do that with new releases, and also used to a degree as well. I mean, if you go into most record stores, you go into their used bins, a lot of the time it's just absolute junk in there. And also they've been really badly looked after. So, not only are you getting like, a terrible record, but you're getting a terrible record that sounds terrible as well. And I think it'd be really nice for people who like listening to records, and that's how they choose to listen to their music. It'd be really nice for them to kind of go out and be able to come back with perhaps, 5 or 6 records, of which half they've maybe never heard before, and it's brand new, and they're taking a punt on that, because not everybody wants to discover music digitally. So I know I certainly don't.
And then onto the merchandise side of it. Then, I mean, like, I must admit, I don't greatly buy a huge amount of merchandise. T-shirts are what I buy if I buy an artist T-shirt. What's the average price that you kind of see on a T-shirt these days? Is it about 30?
About, I say between 25 and 35 pounds. I would say 35. Arena level probably around about 35. And then if you're doing a sort of a smaller, a smaller academy run or a theatre run or something, then I would say around about 25 for that. I think it's all relative, isn't it? I mean, it's who puts a who's to sort of determine whether or not something is prohibitively is expensive or not. Really, it's kind of I don't it's tough to get right. There will be and there will be bands that will go out and they will have a single color screen print on a Gildan heavy, and they'll be able to charge 10-15 pounds for it. I know, like, it's certainly within the sort of like the DIY and the punk scene, that's kind of the going rate. But as you get sort of bigger, there's just more costs involved, really. And there is more, especially if you're going into, a lot of the venues will be charging a fee. So, you've got a venue cut at certain levels. So immediately you've got 25% gone, 26.5% in some places. So that's gone already. Manufacturing costs, I'm sure, you might well be able to cut a really good deal. And if you're printing up, tens of thousands of shirts, I don't doubt that you would get a really, really good deal with printers. But if you're not, then yeah, and also quality as well. I think customers are expect a certain quality from their t-shirts now. The days of a rubbish print on a Fruit of the Loom that's going to fall apart after one wash, that's no one's going to enjoy that, and covet that. And I think that when you buy something from a show, you take it home with you. I think that you sort of it's a nice memory from the show, and it's great, and you want it to like last. You want to, every time you wear it, you want to feel great. And that comes at a price. There will always be people that think that something is too expensive, but there will also be people who have absolutely no problem with dropping lots of money on stuff. And I know that certainly all the artists that I work for, and there's always conversations about the price, and it's always trying to obviously not take the piss with it at all. Absolutely. And if it can be adjusted and if it can be changed, then absolutely, yeah. But it's I think that's sort of where we're at now. I can't imagine it going much. I can't imagine it changing a great deal for a while. I think we're sort of at that level now.
Cool. So then, one of the questions I obviously want to ask you was about weird merchandise. What's the weirdest merchandise that you've kind of?
Oh,
I don't name the artist or anything like that, but
no. I'll happily. It was incredible. So about 2-3 years ago, maybe, I did a Charlie XCX show, and she had a Charlie XCX branded spanking paddle. Not the weirdest, because she also had a Charlie XCX branded anal douche. And do you know what? And they sold. They actually sold. But here's the thing. Right? So I was working with a really good friend of mine, Vanessa, who does merch as well, and we were selling it. It was a really busy show, and there was when Charlie sort of came on stage, I said to Vanessa, I was like, have you sold many anal douches? She was like, yeah, I've sold loads of them. I was like, I think I've sold like 3. I was like, do they feel like uncomfortable coming to me and like asking for I was like, why not give off like big gay bear energy? And she was like, I'm so sorry, not in the slightest. I was like, for fuck's sake, God. and so then and then at the end of the night, we were like so busy, they kind of had to kind of come up, and a lot of people were just like, yeah, just give me that, it's fucking brilliant. And then some were just kind of like, can I get the tour t-shirt, pack of badges, and an anal douche, and it was kind of like sort of, I was like, I got you. You're good, yeah. So that was probably the weirdest one that I think, yeah. It's been a whole bunch of, I've sold like branded condoms, toothbrushes, but that's pretty much up there. But yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Wow, that is odd. Have you had a favorite artist that you've liked to tour with over sort of your career?
Yeah. So I mean, They're all great, to be honest. I've been really lucky. I haven't really toured with any knobheads at all. They've all been really good, really lovely. I would say, I mean, obviously, Idols are, I mean, I love them to bits.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful band, beautiful crew, really, really wonderful, lovely. And they've been, from sort of day one, they've just been really, really welcoming and taking me on the, essentially around the world with them, which is very rare for merch people. We don't often we often do the UK and Europe, but being sort of taken out to the US loads of times and Mexico and places like that. So yeah, it's been really nice. But yeah, just lovely, lovely people. But I have to say, one of the best tours I've ever done in my life was a couple of years ago, and it was Self-Esteem.
Oh, yeah.
And just like that tour was so special. Interesting. The only tour I've done where I got a tattoo, I actually got a Self-Esteem tattoo as a result of that. Really, the dynamic, the environment was just really. It was different. It was lovely. It was an almost entirely female crew, and obviously female band as well. There's actually Mike. And there was just this the environment, the atmosphere was just so it was just so lovely that I kind of went away from that and was like, if I only ever tour with one artist again, I'd like it to be that. So yeah, so yeah, really nice. But yeah, they've all been really, really great in their own ways. So but yeah, that's been a highlight for sure.
Yeah, so obviously we were just talking about Idols. As I mentioned in the intro, like honestly, one of my favorite bands of the last 10 years. That are absolutely incredible. Obviously, have you been touring with them since sort of the beginning, or has it been recently?
No, I joined in 2022, so it's been quite sort of fairly newish for me. Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, obviously the like that I've said, the sort of the meteoric rise of them has just been absolutely incredible. Because I remember I've seen them. I think I didn't see them on the first album tour, but I definitely saw them on the second album, and then it's just gone from there, and it's just absolutely incredible now how big they are. Like I always say that they're the most relevant band of the last 10 years for me, Idols, and I don't know what you think, but
you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. No, I mean they are. It's testament to putting in the hard work and just absolute solid grafting. I mean, they just don't stop. They toured and toured and toured, and kept playing and putting stuff out. There was no sort of rest really. I think that's how you do it, and you just keep battering at it. And absolute, and now it's entirely, they are, it's entirely justified having the sort of enjoying the success that they are now having and playing to the amounts of people they are. It's absolutely great, yeah, and yeah, it is, yeah, I think it is just solid, solid touring and just keeping on at it really, and I think they deserve every bit of it really.
yeah. That must be. Is that your next tour then? Because that starts soon, doesn't it?
It is, yeah. I fly to Belfast on Friday. Yeah, so we're starting. It's 3 weeks. 3 weeks with them, and that takes me up until 10th of December, and then that's me done for the year. But yeah. But no, I think you're absolutely right. I think they're a very, very important band. I think they still have loads more to give. I think it's going to be really, really interesting seeing where they go, like musically, and where they take it. I love the fact that they, I mean, I was a quiet fan and an appreciator of them prior to touring with them. I did like them, but I could sort of, I think, before and around about, obviously before Tank came out, but yeah, I'd sort of wanted to work with them for a while, really. So I was really pleased when I did, and I absolutely love Tank. I think it's a awesome album, and I just I can't wait to sort of see what they do next, because they are, I mean, there's other bands out there that just could easily pump out the same sort of stuff and the same and more power to them if they want to do that. That's fine, but I think I would argue probably get a little bit bored as an artist if you're just putting out the same stuff all the time, and constantly constantly doing that and following some kind of formula. I'm sure that idols have, I'm sure the boys have probably got another 10, Danny Nadelkos in them that they could put out and stuff. But is that gonna excite them? Is it going to make them are they going to be interested in that? And I think it's going to be really interesting, the next stuff that comes out. I haven't heard anything at all, but yeah. One day, never mind. Yeah,
I mean, I remember the first time I saw Idols, and it was at a festival. I tend to have got a lot of festivals with my dad, and it was at Bearded Theory Festival. I mean, this was probably around about the second album, I think, and they were on. Funnily enough, they were on middle of the afternoon, and Sleaford Mods were on right before them. And I hadn't. Obviously, we know the history between Jason and the Idols now, but and Joe, but. I remember watching Sleaford Mods and thinking, because I've never seen them, I'm thinking that was really weird and I've never seen anything like it. And Idols were on straight afterwards. And I remember turning to my dad and saying, I've never seen anything like that. Like, that was absolutely incredible. I even caught one of the drumsticks as well from yeah, I don't still
love a good drumstick, man. Love it.
It's up there. It's up there. It snapped. It was a snap drumstick, and I caught it. But yeah, that was an incredible experience seeing them then. And then I've literally followed them ever since. I must have seen them 6 or 7 times. And then another really good Idol story. Joe once played right after COVID. It was. I'm sure. I don't know. It was 2020. It must have been 2021. He did a DJ set up in Newcastle with one of our friends, Peas. At King Street Social Club in Newcastle and in North Shields, and we were all we were really hyped for it. And I brought my records for him to sign, and he did, but he was late, and I was thinking, oh, where is he? And Pease had to take him to the North Sea for a swim, and Joe went for a swim in the North Sea, and then he came and he said, oh, I'm really sorry we were late, and we were chatting to him, and that was a really cool experience watching him DJ. So.
Oh, amazing! Yeah. They've like. Stuff they play at the DJ sets is absolutely wild. You just got no idea what you're going to get. It might be really like intense techno, but then it might be like might be Fugazi or something. It's brilliant.
I've seen they're doing one in Newcastle, but like I say, I'm over in the States, so I'm missing a chunk of the tour. I'm hoping to try and catch them at some point, but
of course, yeah.
So we talked about Tank then, and what is there any other records from other artists that you've really enjoyed in 2024? That you can think of?
Well, I was thinking about this earlier. Actually, I think it's been a really, really good year for music. Actually, it's been, it's been great. I was thinking about this. So, going back to the Charlie XCX, I think Brat is a great album. I really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed the remix album as that. And then also, I'm a big fan of A.G. Cook, who was the producer on and has worked with Charlie. And I think their album is amazing. I'm actually going to go and see him live in Manchester in December, and one of those albums that goes from essentially chart dance to really sad acoustic ballads. It's a wild album. It's like Britpop is the name of it, and I've loved that. Also, I think the English Teacher album's great. And I mean, I'm sort of, and then also, I mean, I'm a sucker for somebody sad playing guitar to me. So I've really enjoyed the Adrian Lenker album. I think it's beautiful. But big Thief fan anyway, and the Bill Ryder Jones album as well, Lechida. That's badly. It's beautiful. But I mean, all this stuff is. So I just think it's just been some great stuff come out, and it's lovely. It's been really good. I don't know what the best one this year is. I wouldn't put any money down on it, but it's just been ace. But at the same time, like I don't know if you get this as well with regards to sort of music, but there's so much I still haven't listened to. Going back sort of decades. I was listening to the I think it was the second podcast that you did with the lady that or was it Record Store? I can't remember. And you're talking about the Shack album.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And the fact that you at the time I think you were really, really awaiting. They really, really wanted this particular one. HMS Belfast,
HMS Fable, yeah.
Right. So and all that, and I was listening to it, and I was like, I've never heard Shack before. And
Right.
you probably hate me for this, but like, and I was just like, there's so many sort of albums, and even going up to 2024 that I just haven't listened to. And on one hand, I think like half of me is really happy about that, and the fact that there's so much more that out there that I'm yet to listen to, and there's albums that I'm sure that, like, if I was to come to yours and you were to pull out records from your, you'd be like, have you listened to this? And I'd be like, well, no. And you'd be like, oh my God, it's literally the best album in the world. I don't know what the hell you're even playing at. And I absolutely love that. And I love the fact that there's still loads more that I don't know about and stuff. But it also makes me sad. It doesn't make me sad enough, but like at the same time, I'm probably not going to be able to hear some of the greatest albums of all time, because there's just so much being made, and there has been so much being made. Yes, it's just great. I think if you're a music fan, then you're absolutely spoiled right now.
We are at the moment. I mean, every year for the last sort of 5 or 6 years, I've been putting like out. I do it on Twitter now, X or whatever it's called. I used to do a top 25 of the year. Then last couple of years, it expanded to a top 50, and it's so difficult to pull them together. And now this year, I've started doing the podcast. I've started doing like a review series. Last week, I just dropped the January to June, and I go back and I've started to like dig into the records from the beginning of the year, and like from like January to February, March, April. Like in April, in 1 week or something, or it might be January in 1 week, we had Bill Ryder Jones, we had Griff Rhys,
Yes,
we had Michael Head from Shack. He released an album. God, who else do we have? Bernard Butler's is beautiful as well. There was loads in one hit. Richard Hawley's again. There was so many. Like 1-2 months. English teacher. Obviously, I'm very kind of biased because I'm from Leeds and that's where they're from. So I mean, there was so much stuff. But I mean, saw Bill at End of the Road Festival when I saw Idols as well.
Yes,
to Bill, and it's such an incredible record. That would have been my album of the year instantly, but it was released in January, and we've had 11 months of records.
Exactly.
But I mean, I think we're just talking about album of the year. I wonder how many people are going to say it's going to be The Cure, because it is incredible.
Hey, it's phenomenal. That album is phenomenal. It does, if it is the album of the year, but it fully deserves it, because that is a real joy to listen to that album. It really is.
It's been a shock as well. Like obviously finally coming out, and I've only had it's only been out a couple of weeks, so I've only had a couple of weeks to digest it, but it is superb. It really has been. So
I don't think people were expecting something quite that good, but
it's just
maybe
I mean,
but then it is The Cure. So
I mean, that's it. Okay, cool. And so like we'll kind of sort of end it here, but like, so what have you got? Can you tell us any plans you've got for next year? Have you got stuff already lined up?
I have a tour. I've got I'm going back out on the road in mid end of January for about 3 weeks with Boston Punkers, Dropkick Murphys.
Oh yeah,
who I've toured with them before. Lovely. That's mainly Europe. I've got a couple of UK shows with them, and we've got there's a very, very good support band called The Scratch, who are with them. So if you haven't heard of them before, then well worth checking out. Amazing live, kind of just like really sort of kind of just another kind of punky pogue sort of thing, but dead good. So I got that, and then then nothing after that. So but as is often the case with touring and stuff, I mean, there's some stuff penciled in, and there's some sort of like this might be happening. But a lot of the time it's quite sort of, it can be quite late notice, and you might sort of stuff like that. But it was stuff. It will happen. It always does. It's never a problem. And if it doesn't, then I've got more time to listen to records, haven't I? Really. It's one thing going out there and being able to buy all these records. We actually have to find the time to listen to them, and enjoy them, rather than just like coming back and slamming them on for like one listen and then going straight out again for another 3 weeks or something. So one
question I have forgot to ask is, have you had a favorite venue that you've been to, like that you've worked on or you've seen a gig at?
All around the world. Okay. Well, I mean, the first one that immediately comes to mind, and you'll be really happy with this, is the Brudenell Social Club.
Yes.
I would honestly go and watch someone open up a bag of Twiglets in that venue and probably have one of the best nights of my life.
Yeah.
It is incredible. We are so lucky to have that venue.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've seen so many great bands there. Other than that, really, I really like Roadrunner in Boston. That's a great venue. That's really good. It's just, again, I mean, you know, a lot of American venues are really really well considered, and they are, you know, they look after, you know. I'm not saying that British venues don't, or UK venues, you know, don't, but it's yeah, that's a really nice one. I always like that when that kind of, you know, crops up on there. Yeah, lots, you know, different ones, but I would say it's one of those things, you know, when I you know, when I've been out on the road and you go and, you know, you're out sort of in your, put my teeth back in, man. When you're out and you're around live music for 3, 4, 5 weeks at a time, you know, when you come back, it has to be pretty special to get me to go out and watch a show, you know, because it's just like, I kind of like to be away from huge crowds and, you know, and away from that sort of environment. So that's why generally when I'm not touring, I'll go to the like smaller venues. And I will, so, you know, I'll go and, you know, the Bodega in Nottingham, or like Brunel Social Club, and I'll go and see, you know, much smaller capacity venues. And that's generally where I'll sort of end up, unless it's like, you know, this is someone incredible and amazing. But yeah, so I would say, always smaller venues, and, you know, if we don't go and support them, then they won't be around for us. And,
that's it. I mean, obviously we've started to have every year now Independent Venue Week, and I've managed to see some great people for those venues. I mean, like say Brunel, I think where else off the top of my head. I mean, like Day and Night Cafe in Manchester is obviously very topical at the moment, because, you know, they can still try to shut it down, aren't they?
Yeah, they're all, absolutely, yeah.
So yeah,
they're the best ones. They are the best ones, because that's where you get, you know, not to be, you know, not to naysay any of the larger venues. It's a, you know, but it's a different thing. But I mean, yeah, I've walked away from some of the smaller venues, and just been like, that was the best gig I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
So yeah. And Jodrell Bank, I'm going to throw that in there.
Right,
I saw Sigur Rós at Jodrell Bank, and they projected onto the satellite, and it was just a big, you know, it was big, sort of crazy, and, you know, they did their Sigur Rós thing, and that was a really nice show as well. So yeah, I'll throw that up there. Yeah, but you don't often get to see shows at Jodrell Bank, so that was
absolutely not. I was trying to think. I know Elbow have played there, haven't they? And I think New Order have played there previously. But yeah, I mean, that must be incredible. Sigur Rós, seeing them live as well. I've never seen them. They've always been on a bucket list. I've always seemed to miss them somehow. They never really came up north. They always like sort of did London, and they did So
I'd love to. That's a band I'd love to tour with.
I can imagine.
And I'd love to go and see them live again. But Broodnow every time.
We'll leave it there. I will leave it there on my beloved Broodnow. Nathan will be very happy about that, the owner. So yeah. Great. Well, thanks for coming on, Neil. It's been
no worries. Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's been excellent to chat to you. And hopefully I'll catch up with you at an Idol show very soon.
You most definitely will. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Stay in touch. Sure.
Nice one, brother. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, man.
See you, man. Bye.